Hi guys, I'm Megan Brightwood and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about some of my favorites from the knitting world, so my knitting supply favorites. But before we get into that, as always, I do want to take a moment to just quick talk about the sweater that I am wearing, and this is the Puntilla by Joji Locatelli. I love this sweater so much. I've had it for 3 or 4 years now and have gotten a lot of use out of it. It's made out of a Malabrigo sock yarn in the colorway Pearl, and the pattern itself does have an option to add a lace detail on the cuffs and the bottom hem, and I had planned on doing that with this sweater but never found the right color to go with it. So I didn't end up doing that, but I do really kind of like just the basic plain sweater look, and this particular pattern is amazing. It has really stood the test of time for me, so if you have not knit it yet, I would highly recommend checking it out. And there may actually be a worsted weight version of this as well. I'm not 100% sure. I know that Joji Locatelli does do some patterns that are out of a fingering weight or a worsted weight, and they're essentially the same thing. So yeah, definitely check it out. She has some amazing patterns. I really should do more by her, but I haven't gotten to it quite yet. So another thing to add to my list. But anyway, let's hop into some of my knitting favorites. So going right in with yarn, this yarn is actually one of my favorites to work with. It's the Malabrigo sock yarn, and I have a skein here that I'm working on a little baby blanket with, and it's turning out really well. My son Charlie, he'll be 2 in August, so just a couple weeks here. He picked it out for me, but I have used this before. It's the colorway Fresco y Seco, and I think that I knit the Dandelion cardigan by Along Avec Anna or Anna Dervaux for my daughter Evelyn a couple years ago, and I might even have a blog post about that, so I can link it below if you want to check it out. But it's a really fun yarn to work with. It's a little tricky to wind because it does have a little bit of stickiness, but it's 100% wool yarn. What kind of wool does it say? Superwash merino wool. And it just really nice, works up really well. And this sweater, like I said, I've had it for 3-4 years and I've worn it a lot, and I have actually sent it through the washer, never the dryer, but I have sent it through the washer, and there's pretty minimal pilling. I mean, it is there, but I've never cleaned it up, so it's been a really nice durable yarn for me. I really like that one. And the other one, you guys already probably know what I'm gonna say. It is the Cascade Yarns Heritage Sock Yarn. This one is in the colorway Strawberry Cream, I believe. And I'm working on a little dress for my daughter Evelyn out of this. It's turning out really well. It's the Holly dress by Pernell Larson. Really cute, absolutely love it. But this is another yarn that does really well for me. It's really soft once you block it, and it just keeps its shape really well. So I love both of these, and I am kind of partial to fingering weight yarns. They have the drape that I'm kind of looking for, and so I don't typically branch out from there. I do also really like the Cascade Hampton yarn, which is a cotton and linen blend. So if you're looking for something that would work more for the summer months, that would be a good option. And then I do also like the Malabrigo Rios yarn, which is a worsted weight yarn. I just knit my husband a sweater out of that, the Svensson pullover by Jared Flood, and that turned out really well, and it was a really fun yarn to work with. But for the most part, I stick with the fingering weight yarns, and a lot of the Cascade Heritage yarn is used in this house. So moving on, because these are just, you know, hanks of yarn that have not been caked up or anything, which is when you wind it so that you can actually use it. I mean, you can't use yarn in this shape. It looks really nice and it holds together very well, but yeah, you can't knit with it. So a lot of times if you go to local yarn stores, they will offer to wind it for you, but I tend to go through a lot of yarn and I don't want to have them do that all the time. So one year for Valentine's Day, my husband actually gave me a ball winder and Swift, and I love them. So they are both by Stanwood, and my Swift is this one here. It's a little umbrella one, and I love the wood of it. I really wanted a wooden Swift. I just think that they look really nice, and I know the plastic ones do just as well, but yeah. So this is kind of an umbrella one, so you just kind of push it up to the right size, and then you can lock it in place just with this little guy. Oh, it goes onto the table right here. Really, really simple. I like that it collapses so that I can take it down, because my kids also really, really like the ball winder and Swift. So they will get into it if they have the opportunity. So a lot of times once I'm done winding my yarn, they get put away and the kids can't touch them. So the ball winder that I have is this one, and this is also by Stanwood, and this one is a little plastic one. I really like this, but my one issue, so it also just kind of clamps onto the table. It's got a little twisty thing here, and really the only thing that I have to do when I'm winding my yarn is that I do like to put a little knot at the end and then stick it through here, because if you don't do that, sometimes it'll just slip off and it creates kind of a weird texture to it. So yeah, that's my little ball winder. Those two items get so much use. There was a time in my life that I would get skeins of yarn like that because I felt bad about having people wind it for me, and I would go home and wind it myself just into little balls, and I can't believe that I spent that much time doing that. And the ball winder and Swift is definitely something that if you want that kind of yarn, you want to invest in. So yeah, love those. Moving on to knitting notions, there are a lot of things in this category that I really don't have much of an opinion on. I really don't care about my scissors for knitting. I really don't care about the tape measure that I use, you know, that kind of thing. But there are a couple things that I do kind of favor over others. So first, I have these stitch markers from Rebecca's Room. These are Simply Solid stitch markers, and they're very, very small. So I'll try to include a clip here so that you can actually see what they look like, but they're these little tiny solid stars, and they are so cute. I love using these. They don't work on more than like a size 2 needle, US 2, but I just love using them. It makes me feel very elegant and just, I don't know, makes me feel a little bit more posh, I guess. So yeah, love these. And if I'm working on a project that requires something larger, a lot of times what I'll end up doing is just pulling off my rings here. These are from Made by Mary, and there's one that is my daughter's birthstone and one that is my son's, and I'll use those until I kind of get the pattern figured out. Or if it's something that I'm going to need the stitch marker there for longer, I'll just use the little plastic ones that you can find from like Hobby Lobby, Walmart, wherever. So I'm not too particular on my stitch markers, but those little ones from Rebecca's Room are my favorites. And she does have a ton of different shapes. I know she's got some cat head stitch markers. She has some little heart ones, some butterflies, all sorts of different things. So I will leave her website linked below if you want to check it out. She does have an Etsy store. So yeah, moving on. This next one feels a little bit weird, but I do have a yarn needle favorite, and I've tried other needles before and I always go back to these. So these are just the little tiny blue ones from Boy, and I think I got them at Walmart in a pack of like 4 or something, but they are just the perfect size for me. So some of them can get a little bit long. I really don't like the metal ones. The plastic is definitely the way to go for me. And they just work really well for everything that I need to use them for. And I do appreciate that they are not very expensive, because these things get lost so quickly. I don't know what it is. I can keep track of all of my little star stitch markers, but I cannot, for the life of me, keep track of one of these needles. So I have to replace them every once in a while. And then I do find some every once in a while too, but I don't know, they go the way of socks or something because they just disappear so frequently. It drives me crazy. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is my needles. And before I talk about that, I do want to make it absolutely clear that the knitting needles that someone favors are totally up to the knitter. So there are so many different kinds. There are wooden ones, plastic ones, metal ones, wooden ones with metal tips. I've seen ones that have a little light on the end of them. They're called knit lights. Very cool. I would definitely recommend checking them out because they exist. I just think that part in and of itself is kind of crazy. I have a pair of glass needles. So there are a ton of different materials, and different knitters like to use those different material needles for different things. So it's really a personal preference kind of thing. I don't want it to sound like these are the only needles that you should use. I myself go through different needles at different times, so I don't want it to sound like this is the end all be all. These are just the ones that I find myself grabbing most, and that could be due to the kind of yarn that I use. I do use metal needles, and part of that is because I like that clicking noise. Some people don't, and if you want something a little bit quieter, plastic or wood would be better. But anyway, getting all of those disclaimers out of the way, the ones that I really like are these Addi Turbo needles. There are some that are lace, and I've found that the turbo ones are actually my favorite, and I don't really know why. I don't know what the difference is between the turbo and the lace, but there just seems to be something that I grab the turbo ones over the lace. I don't know. See, that's what I'm saying, is that the knitting needles that someone uses, it's a total preference thing, because I couldn't even tell you the difference between the Addi needles. I just know that I like these ones better. So I don't know, but they are my favorites. I'm starting to kind of transition a lot of my needles over to the Addi ones, and I'm trying to decide if I want to get all circular needles or if I want to instead go with a convertible kit. I know that there are some out there, but I haven't decided yet. So right now I'm just kind of in a stalemate. I'm also redoing my little craft closet, and I did do a tour of that craft closet a little while back, and I can link that below if you want to check it out. But yeah, the convertible kit might work better as in that craft closet to kind of make everything look nice. But at the same time, I do also have an idea of how to store individual needles as well. So I don't know. I haven't decided on what I want to do with my knitting needles yet. And I do still have some straight needles that I really like, and some other, I have some Chiagu ones that I use. I don't know. I've just got a lot of needles. And I've worn through some of my needles, which is a little ridiculous. But anyway, those are my knitting favorites. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you did, certainly give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!